name's Liz Wilson. I'm the Program Manager for Alternatives to Detention at Freedom for Immigrants. Yay! A little intimidating on stage when I know everyone else is going to be a stand-up comedian, and I'm going to talk about something a bit serious, but hopefully I've made it interesting enough. I wanted to talk to you tonight about our work, and I've kind of broken it down into 4 stories about immigration that I want to share. And the first story about immigration is my immigration journey. I don't know if you can tell from my accent, I'm not from here. Where do you think I'm from?
New England.
Yay! Someone got it. Anyone else from the UK? Nobody? Okay, there we go, I'm alone. I was hoping my people might be here. Okay, so I'm from the UK, and the last 3 years of my life have been pretty dominated by the immigration system as I've got married, hooray, and moved over here. And yeah, it's been a litany of paperwork to fill in, huge amounts of money to pay, weird appointments and meetings, and getting all your friends to write a letter saying that your relationship is real, which is quite a strange request to make to people. So it's a really horrible process, and it feels very invasive, and it feels really awful. And it still isn't over, it continues to this day. So I was sharing that story with someone recently, and she told me that she came here as an asylum seeker as a child with her parents, and I literally just said the words, after what I've been through. Yeah, I felt mortified, and it's those moments where you realise the chasm between your bad day and other people's regular 9 to 5 and the way that they're living, the things that they have to deal with. And I think that brings us on to the second immigration story that I wanted to look at, the immigration story of asylum seekers. The idea that people who come here fleeing violence and persecution are thrown in jail, it's pretty mind-blowing, and that's really just a summary of how racism and white privilege affects our society, right? And that's what Freedom for Immigrants are dealing with. There's 55,000 people right now in immigration detention, and that's massively increased over the last 2 years. But this hasn't just happened over Trump. We need to remember that this is something that's been going for years and years and years. So what Freedom for Immigrants are trying to do, we've set up the largest visitation network in the US. We have 4,000 visitation volunteers, people just like you in the audience, going out and visiting people in immigration detention every single week. And we also have a hotline that we set up so that people who are in detention have a lifeline to the outside. They don't even get a phone call. They can't even try and find where other members of their family might be when they were separated at the border. So through our hotline, we're able to field those calls, help people find their families, but we're also able to start reports on the incredible number of human rights abuses that are taking place in these facilities. And let's be clear, immigration detention, thank you. Immigration detention has been set up deliberately to treat people badly so that they will give up on their asylum claims, legitimate asylum claims, but so they will give up and self-deport. So this system at every step of the way is intentionally causing suffering to people. And we've recorded human rights abuses like medical neglect, and things like sexual assault from guards that's going on within these prisons. But at least because we've been able to speak to people, we've been able to create reports and start getting the word out about what the reality is for people in there. Our theory of change is not just about providing immediate relief to people. We also believe that at the same time as providing these direct services, we have to tackle the root cause of immigration detention. So we've started making policy changes. The Dignity Not Detention Act became law last year. It limits the expansion of private prisons. Sorry, you're going to go crazy when you hear what it actually is. It halts the expansion of any immigration detention in California. And what we want to do is see other states start to take this act and make it law as well. And now we're working on the Done With Detention Act, because we are, with the Done Act, we're done with detention. Yes, we should all be done with immigration detention. So the third story that I wanted to look at was the immigration story of the future. And when I tell you about this, Some people have said I'm slightly melodramatic, but this is genuinely how I feel about it. So I want to create the scene for you. Okay, we're in the film Terminator 2. All right, that's the set. And here we are. I am Sarah Connor. All right, now we've been through the bit where I've escaped from the forensic institution, and here I am now with you, audience, my multi-faced son, John Connor. And this is the moment where I need to tell you all how it's going to be and what's going to happen, right? Let's not get into what I know about what's happening in the future. That starts getting complicated. But this is really how I feel about it. And although I may use science fiction to explain how I feel, it doesn't make it any less sincere. Climate change is real. We know this, right? So hundreds of thousands and then millions of people are going to become climate change refugees. The refugee crisis is just beginning, and we're already doing a really crappy job. So I'm not suggesting that every single displaced person needs to move to the US. That is not the campaign that I'm trying to launch, okay? We need other people working on this. We need people looking at it from all kinds of different angles. But at these times, we would want to look to our leaders, right? To be inspired by their wisdom and their ingenuity. Well, we all know how that worked out. Salvation is not coming, okay? This system is broken, it needs to change, but we need to start being that change for ourselves instead of waiting for other people to sort this out. Thank you. So let's dream about a fourth immigration story, the immigration story that we could make ourselves. We're already seeing community groups come together and start to help to sponsor people to get out of detention. Now, if someone wants to leave immigration detention, they need two things. They need a sponsor, somebody probably from the US, someone at least who has status, who's willing to say that that person can live with them for 6 months. Most of the time as well, they need to be able to provide food and lodging because the immigration system is punitive. So when someone claims asylum here, for the first 6 months, they're not allowed to work, right? So that's a real catch-22, isn't it? Come here because you're going to die wherever you are, but then when you get here, you will die. It's die or die, right? There's people have no option in this system. There's no way for them to win. So what we're doing is we're recruiting sponsors, people who have a spare room, people who are able to step up and say that they would be able to offer housing to somebody. And then we're building that strength with communities, with community groups who have other members who say, yeah, you know, I can donate a mobile phone, I can help with transport, I could help with translation. So we're seeing groups of people come together to help to sponsor people, to help to get them out of detention. And if we build these communities together, we can do more. Yay. So we want to drive this through the US because the reality is that we need to remember that gap that I talked about at the beginning, right? This inequality gap. We need to start giving to a point where we actually start feeling it in any kind of way that's close to the way that our fellow human beings are being treated in this world. And we are nowhere close to that right now. So it's not, I'm always nervous about talking about fundraising in front of people because I feel like sometimes people haven't got any more money to give, and I don't want to take anyone's rent money, that's no good. But there's so many different kinds of ways that people can help. We have a huge volunteering program. I'm going to be at the back if anyone wants to ask information, but go and look on our website. You can do all different kinds of things with us. There's graphic design, there's driving people around, there's doing administration online. Whatever you might be interested in, I can almost guarantee we can find something. But most importantly, go and inform yourselves about this issue. Okay? It only takes 3% of the population believing in an issue to win, to change it. We know that. I read an article the other day. So each of you, it's all true, go and find 3 people, tell them about our movement, and bring them into it. And I know that the math of that does not equal 3% of the overall population, or maybe before anyone points that out, but I do know enough about organised religion to know that any belief system based around the idea that once you have believers, they have to bring other people to believe is going to exponentially increase, right? So please do that. Thank you so much to everybody.